Hello everyone, I'm Delyana. Here I want to share to you about the teaching constraints of English as a foreign language in Indonesia, the context of school-based curriculum. It is written by KARIM and ABDUL HAMDAN. You know that English is the first foreign language that has been taught in Indonesia from elementary school to high school. And then it seems the development of English language teaching in Indonesia touched the recent English curriculum objective. The general standard objectives of English language teaching at senior high school in Indonesia are determined as first, developing communicative competence both in oral and in written in order to reach the level of informational literacy. And then the second one, raising awareness of the nature of English as a foreign language in order to compete with other countries in global community. And then the last one, the developing comprehensions of students about the relations between language and culture. Unfortunately, there are still very limited numbers of students who are able to communicate simple in English, although they have been studying English for about 6 years. In order to improve the accuracy of English communicative competence, based on recent English curriculum objectives, the teaching of speaking skill has become increasingly important in the English as a foreign language context. So, that's why this article presents a review of teaching constraints of EFL speaking in the Indonesian context within the broader perspective of EFL language teaching methodology in recent English curriculum. And then it also aims to show whether or not the teaching of EFL speaking has been performed on the objectives of recent curriculum or school-based curriculum. Constraints on English school-based curriculum. The school-based curriculum has been from elementary to high school, and GC Research and TS Research claim that by improving the curricula, syllabi, materials, and activities, or by putting more emphasis on students' autonomy, more effective language learning will take place. And then the important features of school-based competence are competence standards and basic competencies. Competence standards in English curriculum are speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And each competence standard has several basic competence. And then to reach the basic competence in each grade, teachers formulate some teaching and learning objectives in particular meeting. And then the focus of English language teaching in senior high school based on English school-based curriculum is first, discourse ability. It is student competence to understand and produce oral and written text in relation to four language competence such as listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And then the second one, student competence to comprehend and produce various short functional and monologue text and essay text such as procedure, descriptive, recount, narrative, report, news item, analytical expositions, hortatory exposition, spoof explanation, discussions, review, and public speaking. And then the last one, the other competence, it is such as linguistic competence, and then there is social culture competence, and then there is strategic competence, and then the last, discourse maker competence. Teaching of speaking in senior high school has competence standards like to orally express the meaning of interpersonal and transactional discourse in formal and non-formal communicative contexts by using recount, narrative, procedure, descriptive, news item, report, analytical exposition, hortatory exposition, spoof, explanation, discussion, and review in daily life context. Most of students feeling anxious in a speaking class. It is because Panma Wedi stated that it is because pressures from the speaking task which require them to to present individually and spontaneously within limited time. And then also Tutyandari also stated that it is because of poor teacher-learner relationships. So both Padmadewi and Tutyandari emphasize the importance of tolerance on the part of teachers. And then they also recommend that teacher act as a teacher counselor who provides supports and supplies students' need for learning, and rather than as one who imposes a predetermined program. And then the writers of this article suggest that teachers need to help maintain good relations with EFL learners, to encourage them to use English more often, and to create classroom activities in order to enhance students' interaction. Constraint on understanding learners' differences. The first one comes from the learner's attitude. Attitude means views to something by involving mental positions relative to something like a way of behaving, thinking, and acting towards something. And then there are studies that in Indonesia, the student has a positive attitude. So from the two studies indicate that high expectation and desire to know English and to maintain positive view about English should be supported by creating positive attitudes toward English. And then the second one comes from the learner's motivations. So many students in Indonesia shows a low motivation in learning English. Most of English learners have bad motivation and have negative effects to the teacher's instructions in teaching because of misguided assumptions on the nature of language. So those assumptions are English is the most difficult language in the world. So from this statement, giving motivation and growing interest in learning is one of the way to impress the student learning achievement, because there are some studies that in Indonesia, student has low motivations. The result of the test of examination in the school which does not show satisfactory results. And then the last one is on the learner strategy. Language learner strategies are specific activities that students implement often intentionally to improve their ability in foreign language. And then it is defined as specific method or technique used by individual learners to facilitate the comprehension, retention, retrieval, and application of information for language learning and acquisitions. In Indonesia itself, every classroom has 30 to 45 students with mixed ability in Indonesia. So from these conditions, teachers from preparing materials, preparing teaching methods, and assessment should be careful because they face multi-strategies from different levels of student. Constraint on learning material resources. A crucial aspect of speaking material is how students are prepared to speak. This deals with the importance of materials for communicative activities in the classroom. And then most teachers still focus on particular textbook in English teaching and learning without selecting the textbook before using them. The most teachers are barrier to design tasks for speaking activities, choose types of materials, and determine the media for presenting the material. So, speaking material mainly depends on teacher's decisions making. Teaching and learning material at least consists of a competence standard basic competence, learning objective, student activities, methods, material, and assessment. Constraint on classroom activities. Classroom activities is another constraint that teachers encounter, particularly with respect to turn taking. You know that student attention is very important in the classroom in order to naturally focus on the practicing on the target language in the language learning process. So the activities here usually use teacher center. It includes repetitions and substitutions drill, which are essentially use active phrases and sentences that learners have understood. But in school-based curriculum, teacher here is not a model, it is but they are as a facilitator, co-communicator, or advisor. It is can be called as meaning-focused instructions or usually is defined as student-centered. It is gives the student more opportunity to practice the target language, inspire various activities in the classroom. While many activities in the classroom have been oriented to speak for real communications, some activities are conducted merely for giving students opportunities to practice speaking, such as to speak through games or through repeating patterns. Okay. The next one, constraints on teaching method. Marcelino stated that many teachers still use the audiolingual method in English-speaking classes, an approach that has a different set of tenets and beliefs from that of school-based curriculum. In Indonesia, teachers frequently use Indonesian language to discuss the topic and to some extent to explain the grammatical rule of the target language. This is because they speak in Bahasa Indonesia or Indonesian language that, uh, that makes their command of English is poor. Teachers and students in applying school-based curriculum of English are expected to communicate in the target language and not to dominantly account for grammar components and or formulas. So, because of the status of English as a foreign language, learners need to be encouraged to use English both in and outside the classroom. Constraint on speaking assessment. The four skills of English should be assessed with appropriate assessment tools. Some English teachers assess students with but some of teachers assess students with the wrong way. It's not a appropriate assessment tool. How students speak or present oral communications is a task for speaking skill. So there is an authentic assessment here. Authentic assessment is the popular issue in the school-based curriculum. It's taught by Roll Killen. The authentic assessment is sometimes called performance assessment, performance-based assessment, or direct assessment. So, school-based curriculum focus on continuous and ongoing assessment. It is in order to holistically evaluate the student's language performance. Once the standard for student speaking proficiency have been determined and the language functions included in the instructional material, the next thing to do is to test the student speaking proficiency. Also, in speaking, alternative assessment refers to continuous assessment, a form of evaluation of student speaking proficiency based on day-to-day record of evaluations. Thank you.